In today's lesson, we will be writing equations, the y equals mx plus b slope-intercept form, and we'll be writing them from a table of values. So we'll be looking at an xy table and then being able to look at it and write an equation. So just another reminder, m is always your slope, and to find slope, it's always the change in your y values divided by the change in your x values. And then b is always the y-intercept, and you can think of that as the point that crosses the y-axis would be where x is 0. So whatever y value matches up to when x is 0, that is your y-intercept. Before we get into the lesson, I just want to do a quick review on what is the difference between a linear and a nonlinear function. Well, linear is when you have a constant rate of change, where rate of change is change in y divided by change in x. So let's look at these two tables and determine which one is linear and which one is nonlinear. The one on the left first goes up by 4 and then goes up by 2. So at first it looks like that is going to be nonlinear, but you have to look at the x values. Here they go up by 2 and then they go up by 1. So 4 divided by 2, does that equal 2 divided by 1? And it does. Therefore, this is a linear function because the rate of change is constant. And then let's look at the second example. All of your x values are going up by 1, and then the y values go up by 1, and then up by 3, and then up by 5. So this would represent a nonlinear function because the rate of change does not equal, is not constant. Alright, so here's our first example. We have a table of values, an xy table, and our goal is to write the equation in the form y equals mx plus b. So we need to find the slope and find the y-intercept and plug them in. So to find the slope, that is your change in y divided by change in x. So let's find that. Our y values are changing by, goes up by 3, up by 3, up by 3, and up by 3. And then your x values are all going up by 1. So the change in y divided by the change in x is equal to 3 divided by 1, which is 3. So my slope is 3, so y equals 3x is the start of my equation, but I need to find the y-intercept. And if you remember, the y-intercept is always the y value that matches up when x is 0. So the first thing you want to do is look on your table and look at the x values and see if 0 is given to you, and it is. What number matches up with 0? It's 2, and it's positive 2, so plus 2 is my y-intercept. So there is the linear equation that corresponds to this table of values. Now the cool thing about these problems is you can always check your answer. What you can do is take your equation, so y equals 3x plus 2, and you can take a point and you can plug it in and check it. So let's just pick a point, 2, 8. So if I have the point 2, 8, 2 is x and 8 is y, plug 2 in. We plug 8 in for y equals 3 times x is 2 plus 2, and then 3 times 2 is 6 plus 2 is 8, and 8 equals 8. So that is a way to check that our equation will give you these points. Alright, here's our second table of values, and our goal is to write the equation y equals mx plus b form. So to find the slope, Let's find the rate of change. Let's see my y values going down by 1, down by 1, and down by 1. X values going up by 1 each time. So, to find the slope, change in y divided by change in x is -1 divided by 1, which is -1. So -1 is my slope. And now to find the y-intercept, you always want to find the y value that matches up when x is 0. However, if you look, 0 is not written on our table. So we have to use the pattern of these numbers to figure out where 0 would be. So 1, 2, 3, 4, if you would continue the pattern this way, you get 5. But if you continue the pattern backwards, is where you'd have 0. So we want to figure out what number matches up with 0 if we follow this other pattern backwards. So I just want you to think, if you follow the pattern forwards, it would be -5, -6, -7, -8, -9, and then if you follow it backwards, you'd be at -4. So even though this isn't given to you, you can follow the pattern to find it. -4 is what matches up with 0, so that is your y-intercept. So the equation y equals, my slope is -1x, and my y-intercept is -4. Okay, in this example, it's a little trickier, not too bad. First, I just want to point out that you have f of x, function notation, which is no different than if this was just y. So let's first always look for the slope by finding the change in our y values and the change in our x values. Let's see, change in y values. It's going down by 12. Now 6 to -6, it's going, let's see, down to 0 would be down by 6, and then 6 more. This is again -12 and -12. And then my x values are increasing, and they're going up by 2. -1 to 1 is 2. So to find the slope, change in y divided by change in x is -12 divided by 2, which is -6. So my slope is -6. Now the problem is finding the y value that matches up when x is 0. What number matches up? On the table, 0 is not given to you, so we have to figure out where on the table would the 0 be. And as you can see, 0 would fall in between -1 and 1. So we need to figure out what number would match up between 6 and -6. So I'm going to rewrite my table a little bit. I'm going to add in a few numbers so I can truly see the pattern. So at -3 it was 18, and at -1 it is 6. And since my slope is going down by 6, that means for every 1, instead of skipping to going down or up by 2, we're going to go up by 1, which means we go down by 6. So you would be at 12. And then go down by 6 again, you'd be at 0. So 0 and 0 match up, so that is my y-intercept. So 0 is the y-intercept. So to write my final answer, y equals -6x and then plus 0, when really you don't even need to write the plus 0. So y equals -6x is my equation for this table. And you can do a quick check. Plug in 3 for x. -6 times 3 is -18, so it checks. Alright, last example. writing the equation in y equals mx plus b form, finding the slope and the y-intercept. So the slope, let's see, change in y going up by 2, and up by 2. And the change in x, up by 2, and up by 2. So the change in y divided by the change in x is 2 over 2, which equals 1. So my slope is 1. And now the y-intercept. There's a 0 right here on the table, but that's not the 0 that we care about. You want to find where is 0 on the x-axis. So we're going to have to follow the pattern backwards to get to 0. So it's going up by 2's, 5, 7, 9, 11. If we go backwards, we'd have 3 and 1. And then, let's see, going up by 2, if we follow this pattern backwards, you'd have to go down by 2. So negative 4, negative 6. And now what would it be if we were at 0? Since they're both going on both sides, going up by 2, we realize that it really just means is we're going up by 1. So you can change this to only just go up by 1 or backwards by 1, and we'd be at negative 2 and then negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, and negative 7. So negative 7 is my y-intercept. So my equation, y equals, my slope is 1, so 1x, and then minus 7 is my equation. Let's do a quick check. Pick any of your points. Let's pick 9 and 2. 9 and 2, where x is 9, 2 is y. Plug them into your equation. Plug in 2 for y, so 2 equals, and then 9 for x, 9 minus 7, and 9 minus 7 is 2, which is exactly what it's supposed to equal. So we're good. So there is your full lesson on writing equations in the form y equals mx plus b from an xy table. Good luck with the lesson.